It's a child.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Likewise, so good to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I love our timing since Marnie's streaming tonight.
I know.
It's so exciting.
It's perfect. It worked out so well.
You look great.
Thanks. I'm wearing a little bit of red in like homage. I thought it was worthwhile.
Very nice. I have my background all set with my. Actually, the truth is that this is my background all the time. I didn't change it. I'm in my office, so
I love it. I love it. Oh, that red jacket. That red jacket is
the
best. It is the best. I love it. I love it. So now I want to know how you're doing, because I know you were sick, right?
I was, yeah. I was, yeah. I'm 100%. I'm really great at, I mean, with a little caveat in that. So I had my first COVID symptom on March 16th, and I had started safe sheltering on the 14th. So it was like 2 days, boom, into it. And, I had a relatively, thank God, mild case, although it was unnerving because there wasn't a lot of info on the 16th, and I couldn't get a test. But, it was about, I guess, like 10 days of really not feeling well. But I have my energy 100%. The only outstanding kind of symptom is I lost my taste and smell.
I remember I saw that video where you were eating like a habanero pepper or like a jalapeno and like wasabi, and I was like, oh my God.
I know, it's so funny. When I was sick, a friend of mine's friend is an ER doctor, and she suggested that I, post about my symptoms, because the only thing in the news was really death and tragedy and a lot of fear, and that most cases are pretty mild and people survive them. So it's very nerve-wracking, because other than like, this is my second IG Live, I just never speak to the camera usually. So, and then a girlfriend of mine suggested that maybe I do like kind of like a Pepsi challenge where I eat spicy food to kind of show how like I had no taste or smell. So I kind of did that just to have, make it a little lighter. And I still actually only have like 10 or 15% of my taste and smell, which is crazy.
That's wild. That's so
crazy.
long.
I know, but I took an antibody test. I got access to one here in California. They have a couple labs that are doing them. So I was super lucky. I took one and I had the antibodies. So not that that's changing my behavior at all. Right. Because God forbid, even though I'm feeling good, I could still have some of the virus. I wouldn't want to pass it. So I'm it's just such a crazy, who would have thought, like even 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, it's just how everything's just turned upside down, and, with this crazy pandemic. And here we are. I mean, I think on the positive side, we're connecting. I feel more connected than ever with people like you who, we lead such busy lives. It's so easy to go for months without talking to someone or even texting. So that's the positive.
I know, it's so true. It's so true. I think the last time I saw you was in New York when you were talking at FIT, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right. And I went down because I was like, I just needed to like see you. I don't know. It was like this, but it was super interesting. And Stephen was there, and that was fun. That was really cool. So I'm glad to see your face, and I'm glad you're doing okay.
Yeah. Have you been participating in any of these incredible like concerts that different symphonies and singers and people have been doing, choirs people have been doing?
So like the really big things I just did just now, Juilliard actually just posted right now, like just like an hour ago, a video that a bunch of us had participated in to Bolero. And it started with all these dancers dancing to the music, and then there was like however many of the orchestra members, and then like different people's faces popped up, like Patti LuPone and Laura Linney, like all the Juilliard kind of like grads, as well as all of these students, dancing and being amazing. And so that just came out today. So I had a fun time watching that. And then I've done a bunch of work with my friend Ryan McKinney, who's a singer, and he has a website now called Keep the Music Going. And we're doing like duets and trios, and he's getting more and more ambitious and putting together more people. And
keep us posted on your Instagram, because I would love to see that. I find that I feel I've been so lifted. Like I've been watching Alvin Ailey Instagram, and I feel so lifted by seeing all the art and different symphonies, and it's just been encouraging and soul lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to just see people breathing,
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I sheepishly say that I didn't realize that you had done Walk the Line or like the Kingsman movies, and all of these movies. And I have to say, and I'm not lying when I say that, especially like the Kingsman, I watch those movies on repeat because I like the clothes.
Oh, thank you.
And I've done this, and I know this because I've done it already several times. And every time I go to watch it, the reason I watch it is because the guys look so good.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, those movies are super fun.
And but they're beautiful. Like they're just like, I don't know. I have a thing for like amazingly tailored things. And when you look at that, and just also, I guess there's also the feeling around it and the culture around it.
And Colin Firth. I mean, the cool thing about those movies is that they're about these, these gentlemen spies, English gentlemen spies, which is a great kind of history of, great movies and a tradition of English gentlemen spies. But in the Kingsman, their base of operation is a tailor shop. So at the center of the narrative is clothing and costumes. So that was kind of a no-brainer for me when Matthew Vaughn, the director, asked me to do the first one. I was like, yeah, I'm in.
You've done so many other amazing things. Obviously, like you've worked with Madonna for a really long time, and that's a huge part of your history. And you've done Broadway musicals. And
Michael Mayer, who's the director of Marnie, which is how we met. Yeah. For those people who are tuning in from my side who might not know who Isabel is, Isabel's an incredible singer from who works. I mean, you are freelance, but you have been. How many operas have you been in at the Met?
Oh my God!
Can you even count?
I mean, I've been so lucky that I have been singing there every year for the last 15 seasons. That's and incredible. I've done at least one production. So, and some years, many years there were two, and 2 times I did 3 in a year. And the year I did Marnie was the second time that I was doing 3 in a season.
So incredible. I mean, I am so, Marnie was my first experience, and I have to say that being able to design an opera was not anything I aspired to do, because I didn't dare, right? So when I got that opportunity from Michael Mayer, the director, who we had worked on Hedwig and the Angry Inch on Broadway with, I was beside myself. And then I was totally panicked, because I was like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
I love how, I think, well, but like beyond worthy, but I mean, it's a different medium in a way. Yes?
Well,
no?
I mean, to me, it's such an esteemed art form. And, I was super grateful that it was a co-production with the English National Opera, with the, only because the intimidation factor of the Met, for me personally, was huge. And so the fact that we got to go and debut the opera in London at the E&O, which I love that room, I love that house, and I love everyone there. It just kind of gave us the ability, or gave me the ability, to kind of get my sea legs. So by the time we were going to be working with you and the Met, for me, I felt like I knew what I was doing, or at least I could fake it. And I was really lucky. So many, the costume department at the Met is just incredible. Such an incredible team of people. So I was in really good hands. And then with you, I knew that you were cast in advance. So actually all the costumes were designed with you in mind. So that was really exciting. I just
That
had to
was
go
so
through it.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, it was great working with Sasha too, but
Sasha's amazing.
But you were attached to the project initially.
Right.
And then what I all the way around that, just to say, I have learned about your schedules when you and the how busy that you are and that singers are with this global career where you're traveling all over the world and doing recitals and doing concerts. And I have been thinking so much about you and about your colleagues and about, you know, you're always on a plane, right? So
always. Yeah.
So this must just be an unprecedented time for you.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, our life as we know it essentially has stopped completely. You know, I'm teaching. I mean, I always teach, but I have a lot of time to teach now. So I teach a lot on FaceTime and
Amazing. Like
you
private,
know,
private or groups?
yeah. Yeah. So right now I've been doing a lot of private lessons, like lessons, coachings, you know, whatever you want to call them really. And I love it. I'm a big process person. I've always been like, I like being in rehearsal and I like, you know, kind of finding things out through the living through, you know, of the characters or just the living through of a line or anything like that. So that actually, it kind of brings me into like just my questions and thoughts and curiosities about how you do what you do, because I don't think I ever really had the chance to ask you when we were doing Marnie, because we were so entrenched in Marnie. And like you said, we were so busy, and nobody knows this, but I have never had so many hours of costume fittings before in my life until we did Marnie. And it was exciting. Like it was so, no. It was so but it was a good thing. It was like really exciting to me because it wasn't a norm. And I usually like, you know, I usually sing all the kind of mezzo-y things. And so I'll get maybe one costume. If I'm lucky, I get two. And I had, you know, like 15 costume changes and one dress more beautiful than the next for the course of the show. I mean, I was in seventh heaven with the costumes.
Thank you so much. I mean, the rumor is, you know, like when we do movies, you know, it's not uncommon. Like I've done films where there's been like 40 costume changes on one character. Like my last film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think Leonardo DiCaprio had like 35 costume changes. And
I think that's amazing.
From what I understood, this Marnie takes the cake in terms of the amount of costume changes for a single character ever in an opera. Now, I don't know if there's a like opera book of records, but
I'm sure that's
to you and to Suzy, your dresser.
Exactly. I was going to say, no, I mean, I've never seen it before. We were very excited. And, you know, so Suzy and I, and, you know, we've worked together. So Suzy has been my dresser at the Met almost exclusively, but by accident in a way throughout these last 15 years, you know. And I've had other dressers and they're all really fantastic, but I've had Suzy the most. And so we know each other. She's incredible. She's incredible. And we know each other so well, and we can like finish each other's sentences and do all this kind of stuff.
That must make the changes so much easier because, you know, I learned about quick changes with Madonna on her tours, you know, and they make me like, there's nothing that is more exciting and more nerve-wracking, right, than a quick change. Because I have to design for the quick changes, but Madonna, like you, has a long-time dresser who's a genius. His name is Tony Villanueva, and he has incredible history. He worked with Cher. He's worked with Cher, Janet Jackson, Pink, Natalie Cole, Donna. Every diva you can imagine, he's dressed. Katy Perry, all of them. And Tony he's a master dresser. Right. So I really learned through Tony over the years. My first tour, I started working with Madonna in '97. Our first tour that she did after I started working with her was 2001, Drowned World Tour. Right. And that was Tony's first time working with Madonna. I brought him in, and he's been with her ever since. And, you know, that is kind of their hallowed ground, and I don't micromanage it because that's Tony's talent and his skill. And Madonna's been doing it longer than any of us, right? So
Right.
as you know, as the artist, there's a choreography to quick changes, right?
Yes.
Between
Yes.
your hair and makeup change and your costume change all happening simultaneously. And I, you know, if anything, I kind of created my own, with Madonna anyway, in the early days and up until now, created my own kind of superstition around it. Like I don't want to get in the middle of their magic, because God forbid something could go wrong. And so so I, like, meeting Suzy was so thrilling, and I was just nervous meeting you, because I thought, oh my God, you know, what if this is too stressful, because it's already a stressful part. And you just embraced those changes, and I mean, incredible.
Yeah, I thought that they were so fun. And, you know, yeah, I understand they're like religious experiences, because at least for like Suzy and for me, we go in there and I was like, all right, listen, Suzy, and we're both talking, right? Before we even go in, I was like, okay, we need to go from this to this. Okay. So I was like, so as we're like walking to the stage, we're practicing just talking to each other, you know, even before, until we were like really into it. And I was like, okay, so the first thing I can do, I was like, Suzy, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. I can do
this
my
is during rehearsals, right?
So this is like in rehearsals when we're practicing on stage, and nobody ever gives you a quick change rehearsal. Like, not, we just, so you're
Madonna gets quick change rehearsals. We do like 2 or 3 weeks of them.
I mean,
so
like, that's,
God bless you at the Met. You're not getting a quick change rehearsal.
No, we basically, like, those first rehearsals that we were all on stage together and you had us, we were in your costumes, like, that was when we rehearsed this. Like,
oh my God.
So, like, I'd be like walking to stage and I'd be like, okay, Suzy, I can take my earrings off, I can take my necklace off. And that's why I was like, I need a magnet on the necklace, because then I can do it for you. So I can do bam, 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 gloves, whatever. I can throw them, give me a basket, I'll throw them in the basket. While I'm doing this, you're unzipping my dress. Like, and so she's like, good, because then I can put the shoes in the dress. You want me to put the shoes in the dress? Yeah. So like, she'll put the dress on the floor. I can literally drop one, step into the shoes, and I'm already in the dress of the next one. She has to lift it up. I get my arms in, and as she's doing the other ones, I'm putting on like the new earrings. So that was somebody asked a really good question. They said, what was the hardest quick change? So I actually think there was a hard quick change, and then there was a fast quick change. The fast quick change was going into the yellow dress into the psychologist's office. That was the fastest.
Yes.
And that was like, bam, bam, bam. It was like NASCAR. Like we used to say, it was like, you know, our pit crew. And then the really tricky one, I think, was actually going into the green dress, because there was just more to deal with. I had the stockings and the things and the dress,
the
and
accoutrement,
and the corset and everything. So
I posted a detail of that dress that I love so much, a waistline of you in the dress. Yeah,
it's so beautiful. The beautiful dart down to the front.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which costume did you start working on first? If you had a first that you started on, did you have one that sort of informed the like the through line for all of the costumes, like, and then in terms of palette, so there's a lot of questions kind of all in one, but I'm
sure. The first thing, so, you know, the process with the Met was, you get, you know, in a film, it's like 0 to 60, like you get the job, you usually start quite shortly thereafter, and then it's shooting, bam, boom. But with the Met, getting a commission to work on this opera, I accepted it. And then I had my first presentation was my mood boards. And through the mood boards, you know, with Peter Gelb, the artistic director, and with Michael Mayer and Julian Crouch, the set designer, Kevin Adams, the lighting designer, Nico Muhly, need us forget the incredible composer, you know, and from that, I was able, like, the mood board to kind of suss out what was resonating, because, you know, my work is so collaborative as a costume designer. You know, being a costume designer is being collaborative, and because I come from film, which is really collaborative, I really get a lot. I like feedback. I like collaboration. So I think the first costume that really inspired me, you know, I was thinking Julian Crouch, the set designer, really helped me a lot when he said, you know, because we were looking at a lot of jazz album covers from the 50s for inspiration, and I really was impressed by the colors of these jazz album covers. Really made a big impression on me. The mid-century kind of primary colors that you see in design at that time. And right. Julian said something that, what really helped me and is that, it's really great to help show the audience where to focus. So I use color in that way, and that I thought I could use color to help tell the narrative and the story. And also because we had multiple things happening on the stage at any one time, with the chorus and with the multimedia aspect of projections. So being able to fill the room with the characters, with the color, felt very painterly and felt really right. So that was an initial inspiration from those jazz album covers. And so the first thing that really, and then it was silhouette, because we're dealing in theater and stage and a lot of rear projections, and how the silhouette really also helps tell the story, especially when maybe the lights change and you don't see the color.
Right.
And I was really impressed by that Tippi Hedren silhouette, the Alfred Hitchcock Marnie. And I really love that tension of the 50s, the way that women dressed in the 50s, and the tension in our story, and the sexuality. So that was super important, and of course really inspired by you, and that your beauty and your physicality and how that would work. So the first costume that Michael Mayer, or the first reference that Michael Mayer, the director, really loved, was an image of a coat. I think I found it in a 50s Vogue magazine, of an image of a Balenciaga coat that Michael's like, oh my God, I love it. It looks like a weird bug. And that's what we ended up, that's what your coat was the bug coat, right? This kind of modernist shape.
Yeah.
It almost looks like an obelisk, or like a beautiful mid-century vase when you're in that with your hair and everything, and then the color. So the coat, and then of course the bag, Marnie's handbag was really important, because such an important prop, with all her embezzling. But I don't want to give too much away for those who haven't seen the opera that's streaming tonight on the Met's platform. So yeah, the bag, and then that was a journey in itself. And I thought, I am never who does the best bags in the world? And lucky for me, I'm friends with the people at Prada, Mrs. Prada, and the whole team there. So I asked them if they wanted to collaborate on Marnie's bag and shoes, because I don't want to pretend that I could design anything better. So they're very collaborative. I've worked with them before. I'm actually doing an IG live with them on Tuesday, which I'm excited about.
Ooh, that's cool.
But so I brought them in to collaborate. And so the bag and the coat. So that was kind of the beginning of the veneer of Marnie, right? Not who she truly is, but that outer layer. If you think of Marnie as an onion, and we peel the layers back, and that veneer. So that coat was kind of like the outside onion peel, right? The veneer, masking her true self.
Yeah, I love that. I love that coat. Yeah, every time, for me, every time I put that coat on,
it's right behind me.
Yeah, I know, I love it. It was so fun, because every time I put that coat on, I felt like she was always transitioning, in those moments. She was always either literally transitioning from one place physically to another, or she was kind of going to transition into something else. It was this feeling of or she was going to do something, she was going to go to the vault. I don't want give it away, right? I don't want
her mom's house
or her mom. Yeah, there was always something kind of going on. It always symbolized her kind of, the wheels kept on going, kept on turning. And so it had this protective element to it, and but this dark element as well to it, even though it was this great kind of yellow, canary-ish, not canary. What kind of yellow is that?
It's kind of a chartreuse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a yellow, lime yellow, green yellow.
Yeah, I love it. I knew you would know. I'm like, yellow, red.
It's like a, you know, like, I love how people make up colors, like a, you know, but it is like a chartreuse. I remember Michael Mayer really loves that color too.
I love Michael. When you were doing Marnie for the stage and you're creating these costumes, and you know you're dealing with all these sort of somewhat fixed variables, like the lights, and you don't have things like a zoom lens to focus the audience eye. And so you're then, like you said, you're choosing colors and silhouettes in order to help focus the storyline. Was that kind of one of the biggest sort of shifts in terms of making costumes for a theater piece, like even for Broadway versus for a movie? Are there bigger kind of, were there bigger things like when you started doing for, well, but with Madonna, that's theater too. I mean, so do you find some big differences? Like, do you put like on a different, like cap on essentially, like when you're doing theater versus film versus?
Right. I don't actually. And, you know, Hedwig's actually a good example of that because I had designed Hedwig the film in 2001, and then 14 years later in 2015, I redesigned the Broadway version with Neil Patrick Harris. And, you know, I think in theory, there's that idea that when you design for theater, it's broader strokes, right? So that people in the mezzanine and the balcony can have this similar experience that people have in the front row. And traditionally, I find most theater costumes, not all for sure, but I think the danger is that they can be these very broad strokes and look like, you know, almost like amusement park costumes, you know, where everything is really like super, the scale is really big with the print and everything. And I decided, so costumes for me are really about creating the character. And there's also, I believe, not only of course, all the visual storytelling and character development that the audience needs to see so they can know who this person is, where they're from, where they're, you know, all the identity of the character. But I also believe the costumes really provide a tactile experience for the actors. So that putting, you know, that there's that famous quote, I use it all the time. Laurence Olivier said he always started with his characters from the shoes up, because it informed how he walked. And, you know, everyone has a different process with acting. I'm sure, you know, like some people are sense memory, other people's are more physical. So I just believe that I can offer a beam me up machine for an actor. So, and that how important that tactile experience is. And with anything like with the physical aspect of theater, with singing in your case, and moving and dancing, I have learned over the years, and I'm very collaborative with, you know, what those shoes are. You know, everyone's different. Some people can't sing in high shoes, and everybody has their physical need when they're performing, when they're singing or dancing. And for opera in particular, I think my biggest, most exciting aspect was no mic packs. Which was like a revelation for me. I'm so used to mic packs, right?
That's right.
I remember being like, what do you mean? Oh, of course, it's opera. They don't need mic packs, which is like, bow down, bow down.
But that must be good too, right? Because you don't have to worry about, you know, the extra space or the cord or the...
Yes, and like either it's a wig mic or a mic pack or well, it's always a pain in the ass, and it kind of can take the audience out of the moment, right? So that's a beautiful thing about opera, of the magic and the majesty of that art, and your power is so beautiful. And for me, it's unfettered costume. So I totally appreciate that. But I guess, okay, quick question to I can, as you can see, I can digress.
I love it.
So with Hedwig, I made a decision with Neil Patrick Harris's costume that based on the storyline, he does it because it's almost a one-man show. You never leaves the stage. The antithesis of Marnie hardly ever changes, like 3 changes, which is, you know, not a lot to tell the character story. So I put all the story into his main costume, which is a denim patchwork kind of onesie jumpsuit. And I made it because it's a story about a character who escaped from East Berlin before the wall came down. So I made all these details on the costume that it would be impossible for the audience to see past the 7th row, probably, because if you think of the Berlin Wall and all the artwork, so I did our version with different story clues, and there's no like projection in the theater of a screen like at a Madonna concert. But the reason why I decided to do that and keep the detail very, very almost as if it was being filmed was for Neil and the actor, for Neil Patrick Harris, for the actor. And also I had been to Berlin, and I remember the impression of the wall of the wall, and I went there actually with a backpack as a teenager before the wall went down in the late 80s. Right. And then looking at pictures, if you squint your eye, if you think about graffiti and everything, like on the Berlin Wall, there's all kinds of graffiti. There was all kinds of graffiti. You squint your eyes, it has an overall value. So I felt like if you couldn't see all the details, most of the audience couldn't see all the details, but it had an overall value of kind of a graffitied wall. So it made sense. So in that case, and in general, you know, I tried to keep Marnie, the costumes that you wore, very minimalistic in tandem with the design of the period. So there weren't, you know, we hardly used any print. I think your only printed costume was the first one, right? The very first costume, and that was black and white, very graphic. And that reason is so I felt that with color, that's really, and there were, because it's the 50s, you have to have a necklace, you have to have earrings, right? So, but like in Madonna concerts, she never wears jewelry because it's too dangerous with all the dancing, you know, with something, God forbid, something should go wrong. So, yeah, so I think it really just depends on what of course you're designing for the room of how people are going to see it, but also trying to look at it through a different lens. I would say, you know, for me, every project has its own process and journey that's unique to it for me. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, I mean, this is probably why I think you're so fantastic, because it's about the storytelling, you know, and that's so, that's like the crux of it all, right? It's like, how do we tell a story the whole time, all the way through? And I think one of my most wonderful memories of doing Marnie and being with everybody in Marnie was that everybody was so, and even without saying it, but everybody was so dedicated to telling the story.
Yeah.
And we were all there. I remember working, you know, with Christopher Maltman and all my Marnettes, all my wonderful, wonderful Marnettes, and all the amazing colors and the story that they brought to it. And everybody was so dedicated to telling, and not even just telling the story, but telling the same story, which drives also the focus, right? And drives the audience focus. And that to me is when opera is at its best, right? When everybody, and the orchestra and the costumes and the lights, and everybody is like doing this, kind of going this way.
That's so great to hear, because, you know, being my only experience designing an opera, you know, it felt like such an incredible family. I mean, I felt unfortunately, because I don't live in New York, I wasn't there all the time, which I felt like I was cheated a little bit. I cheated myself. I was working on another project at that time, but I felt so privileged to be there. I'm curious, like, is there a different vibe with like a contemporary opera, since this was never been done before, a contemporary opera compared to you know, the classic opera, which is, you know, iterations and iterations of, you know, the Madame Butterflies or the,
Right.
you know,
It'd be
La
like doing,
Traviatas. Yeah.
right. It's like kind of like I always say it's like akin to actors who do a lot of Shakespeare. It's like you're doing a piece that has existed for, you know, for many, 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 many years, right? And so the biggest changes that happen in those pieces can be this, just the production itself, whether it's the costumes, you know, if a director decides to put an old piece into a new time or anything like that. I would say that usually with the pieces that have already been done, call it the more classic operas or whatever, I would say there's still obviously collaboration and there's still that focus, I think, to tell the story. But I think because everybody knows it, and maybe because we take for granted the fact that we all know it, the focus is different. And we already in a way 100% trust the work itself. And I think we absolutely 100% trusted Nico's work as well.
I mean, and he's there, which is amazing to be working with the composer in a contemporary opera, right? Exactly.
And I think also to Nico's credit as well, is that he was so flexible, right, in the process.
I know, it's so collaborative.
He was very collaborative, like more than I think any composer really that I know of. I mean, they're all really collaborative, the ones I've worked with, I have to say. But he was really extremely collaborative, and
he's so cute.
He's so cute, and he's so nice, and just so willing to kind of get in there. And every time I put on a new costume, it gave me that reinvigoration, like that extra energy that I needed for that next scene, because there were so many scenes. And so to have another costume, like some people might thought, oh my God, that's so exhausting, I have to change again. But what it did is it allowed me to go, okay, new day, new scene, new mood, new temperature outside, new, you know, just new day on the calendar for Marnie. And it gave a sense, it helped the time go by, it helped the story, you know, go by.
It was like running a marathon. I mean, like, incredible.
I know. So, okay, so I have one last question, and then I'll let you go. If you could pick, like, I hate the questions where they say, what's your favorite opera?
Actually, not in such a rush. If you want 5 or 10 more minutes, that's okay.
Okay. Well, I do. No, but I won't keep you too long. I know that, like, so whenever people say, what's your favorite opera, or what's your favorite, you know, whatever, I never have an answer, because I always love whatever I'm working on at the moment.
Of course. Yes.
You know, because you get into it, right? But I love, so one of my wonderful fans, she's writing right now. She has always these great questions. And she had a question the other day when I was talking to other people, which was, if you could be quarantined with any of the 3 characters you've played, who would they be? Like, who would you choose? And so I think that's a really good question. And then maybe to add to it, maybe you could have like an extension. And if you could pick one costume from Marnie, and it could be anybody's character, one costume from Marnie to wear all the time during quarantine, could you pick one or 2?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I really love the costumes that we did for Marnie. I feel very proud of them, and I do love them all. I really love the final costume. There, the
brown.
Yeah, that one. And I love the costume from the psychiatrist's office, because it's like a t-shirt. It's just like a really chic dress that has an effortlessness to it. I love the coat. I don't know. I'm not helping you.
Isn't it hard? I know. I was actually thinking about answering the question myself, because it's a question that I think is fun. Yeah. And of course, my super like pragmatic, like super logical mom brain went on for a second, and I was like, the nightgown. Yeah, the nightgown was great. You made that nightgown really special, because it was actually my most insecure costume on page, like on paper. You know, in film, I don't always have everything sketched, because I do a lot of building like on a mannequin. But the process with the Met were presentational. So like I did my mood boards, and then I presented my sketches. And I guess given the fact that I don't live in New York, also that helped everyone to be on page together. And then I hired this incredible illustrator to do the final versions, which you see on my wall, in the style of the time, because they kind of have like a 60s style to them. Yeah. But they look like the cover of like a pattern book, you know, or like a pattern the old pattern books, you know, those, they look, I love them. I love them. They're so iconic.
Like patterns like a McCall's pattern or a Vogue pattern. Yeah,
right.
the illustrator name is Nicole Geese, and she's so talented and lovely. And she you know, she did these all by hand. They're hand watercolor. And actually, here, I'll grab one. So like you can see, so this is all by hand, and she couldn't really, she did them by herself at home because she had to put music on, and it's a flow for her because it's the way that it's done, she did everything in black and white. And then, so I designed everything in black and white lines, just illustrative. And then I decided on the color after we had drawn the silhouettes. And then, so the color was done after. Right. So yeah, and the design process, I'm not an artist by any means, but here, put this back up here. But I do a lot of collaging and, you know, like I would say doodling, not really sketching, but my version of sketching. Anyway, I digress once again.
No. I love it. There's just so much. I mean, and I think that's what is always, again, so fascinating. There's like pages and pages essentially of research and of looking and just having your eyes open, right? And
being inspired. Yeah.
Right? Probably listening to music of that time as well, even if it wasn't, you know, Nico's music. And
yeah, for sure.
Watching the women and how they walk in the clothes. And, you know, the thing I think was so exciting and so terrifying about Marnie is that her whole thing was that she was so, you know, she was so tied up in knots inside. And she had all these issues sort of expressing herself emotionally and her sexuality and all of it. And yet she wore clothes that did nothing but reveal all of these things that she had trouble to express. Yeah. And it was perfect. You know, it was this kind of great thing. Anyway, that's all you. I was always so excited and so terrified too. It was so funny you say you were like nervous, because I was nervous to meet you. I was like, oh my God, this is like, so good. And then you know what I was really worried about? When I had to tell you that I was allergic to wool.
I remember Robert, who was my liaison for the costume department at the Met, Robert Bula, who's amazing, incredible. I remember when we were talking about it, and you know, it's not the first time that's happened. And to be honest, it's pretty hard to work in wool anyway, in hot lights. And your adrenaline, I'm sure that your body temperature raises when you perform. Everybody's, you know, and this, like we were saying, you're running a marathon. So, no, I mean, it was, you know, it wasn't a problem at all. And I probably, I think maybe the coat was still wool, but you were okay because of the lining. And having those, what we call in costumes, a skin layer, so that whatever's touching you is not going to irritate your skin. Yeah, there's all kinds of concerns like that when working with actors, but that's the beauty of working with everybody has different requirements. No, wasn't a problem at all.
I just remember I was like, oh my God, did she already make all the costumes? And now I'm going to be like, because I remember the first costume, I think she said something about some number of them were in wool, and I remember going like, oh my God, I'm gonna say I'm allergic to it, and then it's like they're gonna have to like rebuild like half the costumes. Oh my
God. Well, wait, yeah, no. Well, everything that you wore was made for you, as you know, everything for you and your body. But no, you know, lots of crepe and silk, and I have a friend who's allergic to silk, and that's super challenging.
Wow, yeah.
Just because you have to work with lesser quality, you know, blended fabric or something to get that feeling, whether it's a taffeta or a crepe. So
I wanted to make sure I could say goodbye to your face. Otherwise, I mean,
I adore you. Thank you so much for having me do this. And I'm going to be watching Marnie tonight and thinking of you and us and Suzy and Nico and Michael. And
oh my God, everybody. It was such a big, gigantic, amazing team of people. I can't even I can't believe it. You're the most generous person. I thank you so much.
Oh, the same for you. I can't wait to see you on the other side of this.
I know, me too. Okay, I'm sending you a gigantic hug. I really hope your smell and your taste and all those things come back really, really soon.
Thank you. Lots of love to you.
Thanks.
Bye.